This is the eLearning Podcast, episode number 60.
A couple of years ago, the idea that I could search to the spoken word within video was kind of foreign. Like that was hard. That was expensive. It involved an agency to go caption it for me. Now that happens real time in Google Meet and Teams, and that stuff's all the technology's commonplace now, and it allows us to understand what's going on within video.
Welcome to the eLearning Podcast. My name's Laddick, and I'm your host from lmspulse.com. My guest for today is Jeff Fissel. Jeff has been an innovator in the video for learning space for decades and was one of the original co-founders of the award-winning Instilled LXP. Today, Jeff helps with the product strategy at several places within the learning technology group of companies, including Gomo Learning and Fluent. In this eye-opening conversation, Jeff and I talk about why he is so passionate about video and the energy that surrounds the creative process. We also talk about why he thinks that video is a particularly effective medium. Other formats can be powerful and compelling, but video offers clear and practical advantages. We also talk about the importance of metrics, especially social metrics, when judging the performance of a video. And we talk about why your videos might be performing better than you think. We also talk about the relationship between video, corporate culture, and a company's ability to encourage creators and leverage user-generated content to bolster their own values. Then finally, we talk about why Jeff believes e-learning must evolve beyond platforms to meet learners at their point of need. And we also talk about whether or not this means the end of the LMS as we know it. But before we get started, a quick word from our sponsors.
The eLearning Podcast is sponsored by the eLearning Success Summit. Learn from more than 40 experts how to teach, work, and learn online without being overwhelmed. Get your free ticket to the summit at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And lmspulse.com, your best source for news, information, and resources for e-learning professionals for more than 10 years. Get our free roundup of the week's top news at lmspulse.com.
Hello, Jeff. Welcome to the eLearning Podcast. How are you today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Jeff, I ask this of everybody. Where are you sitting today?
It's a great question nowadays. I am sitting in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C.
Super cool. And I'm assuming that's a home office or?
It is. I am in my home office. Yes. Or just office now, I think.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Just office. Yeah, I've teed you up. In the introduction to the podcast here. But give me the 15 seconds on who Jeff is, who you work for, and kind of where do you position yourself in the world? Sure.
I'm happy to do that. So, all right. So I will say very fortunate to help start a software company. There was four of us that started it. I quickly realized that I was the weakest of all the programmers. So I had to go do the marketing and sales side of the business. And I learned how to sell and position and sell enterprise learning software. And I was fortunate enough to kind of be a part of this business that grew for many years and was sold and now part of the Learning Technologies Group that was an enterprise video content management solution. So basically that secure version of YouTube that big companies use to create, manage, and deliver video.
Fantastic. And we know it is Instilled, but yes. Who knows? That name could be different tomorrow. We'll find out, but We'll call it Instilled today. Final question for you. I've been using the podcast as a time capsule for everyone about how COVID's kind of been evolving over the last year or so. What's the COVID situation like where you're sitting there in Alexandria?
Right now, it's going. The Delta variant is scaring everyone. People are back in. We had a month or so of good that felt like things were back to normal, and now it's not as good. My wife is a teacher, so I hear about it firsthand in the schools of like how difficult this all is. So I'm hoping that in the next month or so, the trend goes the other direction.
Yeah, you and me both. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I want to start our conversation by asking, why is video so important? How did you discover that video is going to be the thing? I mean, I know we kind of talked in the green room before we started recording this podcast, but like, did you just stumble on it, or did you just kind of been a guy who's always been like, video is the future? Why is video so important?
Well, I think, yeah, there's a couple of things. So to me, I always gravitated towards like video. I was the guy that edited the sports team highlight reel. So I always liked video. I liked the idea of it. It had a kind of a cool, fun, Hollywood-ish vibe to it. Anyone that's ever been on a movie set or TV station, like, it's cool. There's energy to it. It's fun. Like, I always was drawn to that. But as I kind of got into the technology world, I realized that like we could actually make it much easier for people to do. You didn't need millions of dollars and crazy equipment to do this, that it could be done by anyone. And I believe it's one of the most efficient and effective ways to communicate asynchronously. And because of that kind of belief, it's led me to start to apply that more in kind of learning and development type use cases, and helping people realize that anyone can kind of create content. And one thing over the last year that we've noticed is everyone's scraped that tape off their webcam now that they used to have. And because of technologies like Zoom and Teams and things like that, are much more comfortable letting people see them in whatever's behind them and not having the perfectly manicured office or set behind them. And that's a trend that we've loved to, like, we've been able to kind of buck and really embrace in the organization, of letting anyone start to create content, and people are getting more comfortable doing that.
And so take me to, I want to talk specifically first about what Instilled is and what it does, just like give a brief overview, but then I want to juxtapose that to, your other sort of, content delivery platforms like a YouTube and obviously like today, TikTok and those kinds of things. So first, let's talk me through what Instilled is, since we're not doing a product demo here.
Yeah, no. So for us, Instilled is just a learning platform. The website calls it a learning experience platform. I'm not really sure what the X means, but to me, it's a place people go to find the knowledge and information they need to effectively do their job. So I kind of was joking with you before that no one's ever said they wanted to LMS something ever. Like, people go to their LMS when they're told or prescribed to go there. And when we set out with this platform, we wanted it to be a place that people wanted it to go. And you or me, probably, when I need to know how to do something, I usually go to Google or YouTube and look up a piece of video on how to do it. And that's the behavior that organizations that use our technology want as well. It's a place people want to go to find the information they need, and then get on with their work. So it's not, we pride ourselves in that kind of efficiency that's there. Find the segment of the content you need, get it done, and then go back to whatever you were doing before. And so that's what it allows people to do.
So how do people, I mean, is this something where I can just take out my phone and I start shooting a couple clips and then I throw them together, or is there sort of a level above that, or how's it work?
Well, all of the above, and the trend has moved to much more informal cell phone created videos for sure. But it is kind of, our customers realize that relevant video is better than highly produced video. So they're willing to sacrifice some production quality for stuff that maybe the video only has a 2-week shelf life, but it's awesome for those 2 weeks. And that's something that we want to push forward and encourage people to keep creating more and more content and pushing it out there. And we do some cool things on the technology to auto index it, allow it to be searchable down to the spoken word, get right into it, chunk it or chapter it up into segments. People always ask me, like, what's the right length of video? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, whether it's 30 seconds, 2 minutes, or even 30 minutes, like, as long as like it's a thought out process and there's a start and end to the segments of it, like, it doesn't matter. Movies are 30 or hours and people stay engaged with them.
Well, yeah. And I was going to reflect too. Like, I mean, if you, if you go to MTV, they're going to tell you the right video is, you got to move the camera every second and a half, and you can't have a music video that's more than 3 minutes long. But if you go to PBS, for everybody who's not in the United States public broadcasting system, this is where Sesame Street is. This is where the McNair News Hour is, right? You could have a single camera sitting on 2 people for 2 hours, but you've got audience, right?
Right.
So it's what does the audience want? Are you able to, through the Instilled system, see trends and like track, is that in the analytics in the background where it's like, hey, wait, I'm a L&D manager at a corporation. I'm like, I'm noticing there are a lot of people that are clicking on this particular video. Are you seeing that kind of analytics in the back end, or?
Absolutely. And like drop off rates and other things. And that's like one of those interesting kind of social behaviors that we've seen. And we start talking about like learning influencers. And it became this funny thing when you mentioned metrics, like if you post anything on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, no matter what you say, I promise you're actually probably looking how many people liked it or how many people viewed it. And
Guilty.
that behavior, yeah, like we're all guilty of that. So that happens inside organizations too. If someone takes the time to create something and you can show them like, oh, it's getting a ton of views, or a lot of people are engaged, or a lot of people are commenting and asking questions in it, and then you promote that person as kind of like an influencer, they're going to want to create more content. They're going to want to encourage other people to create content. So it becomes kind of this creator-centric mindset within organizations that kind of embrace and highlight and encourage other people to create and let them see the metrics. In a lot of organizations, metrics were this like hidden golden secret that you had to be a super admin to be able to see who's watching things now.
The word is dashboard.
Yeah, the dashboard of things. And they're like, no, just show the hearts, show the likes, show the views. Like those metrics matter even for learning content. And the creators of it love them. And they use that to build energy to create better content.
If I'm an L&D professional, and I assume this is also applicable to higher education, or do you bubble down into K through 12 or?
Not really K-12. It's mostly, higher ed, or it's corporate mostly is where people are using Instilled.
All right. How much leash do I give? I guess that's what I'm really asking. Like, how much leash do I give to everyone? Where, have you seen, is there a danger where learning content bleeds into too much entertainment, too much culture, too much this, and it's not focused on, really build skill building and those kinds of things? Does that matter? I don't know.
I think the community helps you there. And that's where going back to these views, if it's not good content, people aren't going to view it. And hopefully an engaged creator is going to be like, why is Joe over there? Why is Jane's video getting much more than Joe's video? Joe's going to reflect and be like, maybe I didn't do as well. Maybe I can improve that and make it more engaging. So I think that happens itself. We also talk, there is this perception that video is different than any other medium, but at the end of the day, it's just a medium, just like PowerPoint or email or any other way people communicate. And organizations tend to put a lot more controls on video. Oh, you can't do video, but we don't control who creates PowerPoints or who sends emails out in most cases. So I encourage people to think about video just like a document or anything else they manage, and take that barrier that is perceived. I think because it used to be complex, it used to be expensive, it used to be this thing that only executives did or people spent lots of money on, and kind of get those old stereotypes away and think of it just like you allow someone to use Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. There's a ton of really bad PowerPoint presentations out there, just like there are bad videos, but that's okay. And we can embrace that and use the community to help us build better content.
So you mentioned earlier that, and kind of riffs off what you're saying here, that building new learning content is rapid, right? And so you can, let's just say we have a new sales promotion going out, and you and I could put together something, or as a sales manager, I could put together something and deliver to the sales force rather quickly. What do we do about the ephemeral nature of this? That the rapidness with which all information is moving, the rapidness with which things are changing. I had a speaker at the eLearning Success Summit this last April, and he was a consultant for some of these big Fortune 100 companies. And one of his diagnoses, he said, well, I once went into one of these big companies and we looked through their, took random selections of their LMS, and we found that not one of the learning pieces was up to date, right? Like not even one that was 2 weeks ago. It wasn't just, it had been changed. Do I care about data storage? Do I care about, oh my God, I'm just going to have this giant clutter of, Netflix videos everywhere that I'm going to have to sort through? Does that need to be managed? And how do I wrap my head around the organization of user generated content like this?
Yeah, so that's good news is that there's technology that can help us with this. Like a couple of years ago, the idea that I could search to the spoken word within video was kind of foreign. It was like that was hard, that was expensive. It involved an agency to go caption it for me. Now, like that happens real time in Google Meet and Teams, and like that stuff's all the technology is commonplace now, and it allows us to understand what's going on within video. So I think about it some on like I used to be a folders person until like Google or Gmail or even Apple introduced good search. Right. And then I was like, folders were gone. Like I don't have folders anymore at all. Like it's just all what it is. And it's a personal preference. And I like to think I'm in the trend, like not the, like there's more people like me than not that aren't still using folders, but maybe the folders still exist. So I think when you have good search technology that allows people to find within content, it allows you to keep control of that and feel better that people are finding the most relevant stuff. I hate people talk about AI and machine learning and those things, but that actually does apply a little bit here around like scoring and ranking of things. And those social metrics drive search, just like Google does. And that technology actually helps people find stuff, and the stuff that's not viewed kind of drifts off to obscurity, but it still could be relevant to people. So one of the things we did with our pricing model, we're not talking about product much here, but is we didn't cap storage at all. We just tied it to the number of users. We said unlimited storage and delivery, because we don't want you to think, is this video worthy enough of this platform? That's done. No, every video is worthy. Put it on there and let the community decide if it's needed. And that's another thing that's interesting in L&D to me. It used to be content was created by a small group of people for the masses, for the large student population. But I can make a business case now that a video someone creates that maybe is just relevant for their 10-person team might be more useful and more productive to the business. And it might only be useful for that 10-person team, and that's okay. And that's like a different behavior change. And it's something a lot of traditional LMSs don't really accommodate for. Like you're a teacher and you're in that audience, or you're an instructor and you're there, or you're a student, and there's not very many lines in between them.
How does the reverse happen? So I'm thinking, like you said, that 10-person team, and we're the underwater basket weaving team, and we know how to do this particular job really quickly. But something that we've discovered is actually really relevant to marketing and sales and HR. So what's the backwards path? Have you ever discovered that, where maybe that's the ranking system where this small team really likes it, and then is that discoverable by others, or how's that work?
And that's where search comes out. And that's another thing we work with a lot of organizations on, is everyone wants to lock things down pretty quickly. And I'm more of the open it up, like absolutely you should have a walled secured garden for your organization. Like this is organizational specific content that's confidential. You want to make sure only the right people are saying it. Like don't put it on YouTube and mark it private. That's not secure. Like people will find that. So like invest in a platform that's actually authenticating, doing single sign-on encryption, like those sort of things. But then within the organization, we kind of encourage people to open that up, because if someone in marketing searching for something that they think is in marketing, but they happen to see in that search that, oh, someone on the product team created something there, like there's some good content they find in there. The other trend we've seen where people are discovering stuff is everyone in the last year started using Zoom and Teams, and everyone recorded those, which is great. But what that meant was you had a ton of hour-long videos. And I promise you, we look at the stats, no one actually ever watches an hour-long video again afterwards. But if I can find the 20 seconds in there that's relevant to me, that's super useful. And I can do something with it. So that's more of the trends we're seeing. And I'll give one more anecdote or kind of story, because we actually used to have this technology that was like a really rigorous approval queue. So it's like I created, and then it routed to my manager, and then it routed to their manager, and they had to like all approve the video before other people could see it. And what happened was bottlenecks started to happen there. And then the creators got really frustrated. Sure. They're like, if it takes me a week to get something approved, like I need it today. So we actually ripped that completely out of the technology. And we just clearly labeled like user generated content versus company specific content. So there's like the company blessed or organization blessed area. And it's clear that stuff that's here is what the company says is official. And then there's the area that is the users created content. And it's not warranted. It's not maybe the thing that's perfect, but it's the area people can go create and share themselves. And then when someone in the company sees that, they can actually move it or get it into that more blessed area. So they can kind of use the organization structure or hierarchy of content to manage it, but not restrict the creator potential.
How, because you've had the fortunate position of watching this thing evolve and grow over time, do you have a story around how Instilled as a platform and then video in general have influenced jargon, culture, style of organizations? Like, have you seen any of that with the clients that you've worked with in the past where there's just clearly like it started to shape who they were and vice versa? Like that's kind of played out?
It's absolutely a culture building thing because you get to see people's faces and expressions and like understand who they are. We had an organization that had annual compliance training. Everyone does it. It's an awful click next e-learning that like no one really wants to do. But we had a senior leader got on and recorded a video before. It was 30 seconds and just said, hey, like, I know this is going to be a bad experience for you, but here's why it's important. It covers our liability insurance. It saves us money if we prove everyone does this. And like, thank you for taking the time to do it. And that was a culture building opportunity that everyone in that organization that had to take that training now got to know that executive, understand that like no one thinks it's cool or they want to do it, but now they have some context around why they were asked to do it. Maybe they didn't know why they had to do the anti-money laundering training every year. And like, that's a thing that could be relevant. So they're absolutely culture building activities and culture building moments that you can use video to kind of build that personal connection with people that's typically lost in a click next e-learning type scenario.
The thing that, as you were explaining that was triggered in my mind was, at what point did airlines figure out, the safety video that you see before you always take out? At what point did the big carriers figure out, hey, we don't have to just sit here and, have the animated click by click video or this, that, and they started to actually have some production behind it. Do you have any insight into that?
America did that. Virgin America, I think, was the first to do it. And there's some stuff we can probably find it and link it because they did this case study where like they got pushback from a lot of the regulators being like, you can't no, like you're supposed to just read this. And they're like, no, we want our culture, our personality to come through with it. And they're like, hey, actually people are paying attention more to this because we did it in a music video kitschy way. And now Delta, all the other airlines have done it that way. And it's a great opportunity for the CEO to come on and build connection and all of those things and use that medium to do it. So the same thing is true for compliance training in large organizations or universities.
Well, and so let me then take you to another rabbit hole. I don't know if you have an anecdote or an example of this, but what's the most curmudgeon-y business or profession that you've seen transformed with video? And I'm thinking, this applies to salespeople, right? This applies to marketing and, sort of really people-focused organizations and social environments. But what about the laboratory or the engineering department and these kinds of things? Are you seeing the same kinds of transformation in those places as well?
The example that I shared of the executive there was a hospital that did that. So this was a hospital system, not usually known for being super creative and exciting with their learning content. So yeah, it can be done anywhere. It's just you have that captive audience at that point where people are going to have to go through it. Why not take advantage of it and add something fun and exciting to it? It doesn't take that much time. It can be done on a webcam just like this. You can record a Zoom meeting and you're using that opportunity to connect with people. And I believe that we connect better when we see each other. There's just so much more. And I'm sure there's studies out there that I could find that prove that scientifically, but it's just a natural thing. When you see someone's face and you hear them, you're like, oh, I get it. I can connect with you.
I'm glad you've teed me up to promote the eLearning Success Summit. Go listen to Dr. Britt Andrietta's talk. She talks about why not only face to face, but if you and I can actually get in the same room, we actually share that energy and whatnot. But video goes a long, long way. Goes a long,
Yeah.
long way.
Yeah. If we could do it, like in person is by far the best, but that doesn't scale, obviously. So, and it's cost prohibitive in a lot of cases. So the next best thing to me is scraping that tape off the webcam and getting in there, doing it.
What about everyone who's listening to this right now who doesn't want to be a creator? Who's like, hey, that's great. And I definitely use YouTube to go search, and figure out my hobbies and get some answers that I need for my profession and whatnot. But I don't want to be a part of this. So what's the trend that you've seen in terms of creators versus consumers, I guess, in this market?
I don't know if there's a trend, but I do think like I don't even like talking about generational stuff, but I'll mention it briefly. Like as the generation that's coming into the workforce that is comfortable creating TikToks, which are to me a very vulnerable moment of like me making a fool of myself doing something and sharing it with the world. Like talk about vulnerability, like and tracking that stuff. Like I think there's more creators than we know that are out there, and giving them technologies and a safe place to enable that definitely is a good thing. There's always going to be people that don't want to do it, and that's okay. The encouragement there is to provide feedback to the people, help the people that are creating, provide them commentary, coach them, like or favorite things, just simple passive things. Even like, yeah, you might be a consumer of Instagram, but my guess is you probably still heart your friends' posts. Like that behavior is still a thing, and that helps drive the culture as well. So not everyone has to be a creator. Not everyone has to do crazy songs and dances or wave their hands in the air. The other thing we've learned is that like we kind of joke, video doesn't have to be people's faces either. It can be it's anything with a start and stop time. So it could just be you narrating a PowerPoint presentation, or maybe a Zoom meeting that's relevant where you're sharing best practices. Like video editing isn't hard now. You can trim. In Instilled, we give you the ability to trim those segments directly in the browser without having to know anything. And there's lots of other tools out there that will let you do that for free. So like if you even like that's, some people don't even think of that as video, but most people are creating content, whether they realize it or not, just by attending virtual meetings and engaging in the conversation.
That's so take me to some of the challenges. Like it's so easy to talk about all of the great stuff, that user-generated content has, that, essentially the costlessness of video these days. Everybody's got some kind of mobile device that, we can do, film video on. And now with the tool that we're talking about here, Instilled, creating this type of content is super fast and easy. What are the drawbacks? What are the things that your team is working on? What are the big challenges and big hurdles that either you're working on now or you see coming down the pipe?
I think it's to me, better and deeper understanding of what's going on within the video to help people, because we're creating more. And I don't believe that, I think we're only going to keep creating more content. Like, I think that's going to happen. Everything's going to start recording even more things. And that means we have to be better at indexing, understanding, and serving content up to the point of need when people need it. And that to me is the next big challenge for us, is like, how do we make learning a truly headless experience? And how do we push the content people need into the productivity tools that they're already working in today at the point of need? If I'm in an email discussion about something, wouldn't it be nice if it started pushing stuff that was relevant and things like that? And that to me is the next kind of frontier. I know there's like, everyone wants another portal for everything. And that's like the traditional LXP pitch, which instills an LXP is, oh, we'll just be another portal. And my pitch on that is, I don't think people want another portal. I mean, Google did that. Like, if you remember Google and I'll age myself, the Google IG and the My Yahoo page, like everyone built their own widgets and all of that. And you thought it was cool. Then Google's like, nope, you don't get that anymore. And I was pissed. I was like, no, I need my personalized dashboard that I've configured and done everything myself. And they were actually right. I don't. Like, they push things to me in Gmail when I need it, or in wherever it is. And they've done a good job of doing that. And I think learning's got to catch up to that a little bit. Like, we don't always need to go to the LMS to do learning. Learning happens everywhere. And we have to kind of push that out and kind of embrace that as L&D professionals.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. And so that to me is like the challenge of like, how do we get out of our own, and I consider myself one of like our own box in L&D of just doing L&D stuff, like thinking about it more in the productivity sense of enabling an organization. Reskilling and upskilling are the buzzwords everyone's throwing around now, but that's just like enabling people to be better at their jobs. Like, go help them where they are. It's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily have to be like giving someone access to LinkedIn Learning or Udemy or something like that. It's broader than that. So yeah, those are the challenges like we see is like, how do you get out of the box of just L&D, and how do you get learning into the areas where people need it the most in kind of a headless sort of delivery or headless sort of learning way?
I'm still wrapping my head around the term headless. I really enjoy that. I'm a huge advocate, and obviously, you know, that e-learning happens. It's every day. It's all the time now. Over the last year, we've seen all these huge debates about, oh no, my kids can't learn like this. This is impossible. You know, that we can't keep them home from school. And oh, wait, my team, it's now remote. How are we going to, you know, work as a team, but then also how am I going to keep them? And it turns out that we've been doing this for literally a decade, you know, and longer now. And it's only accelerating. So you know, I've drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak. Is there a time when you ever say to a potential client, hey, you know what? What you need here is probably an in-person meeting, or what you need here is probably some, you know, you need to actually make this a physical experience or something like that. Like what's your criteria for that? Or is that just sort of, you know, you know it when you see it?
A little bit of you know it when you see it, which is the worst answer to that question. But the other thing I'll say, like, is we've broken down the tech barriers for video. Like, it's like you said, it's easy, it's cheap, go create it. But that doesn't mean we're all going to create good video, or that we're all good storytellers, or that we're all good communicators. So I think one of the other challenges that I want to help the community with is, how do we become better storytellers? How do we become better communicators and use this medium to do it? Because no one wants to listen to someone ramble for 45 minutes with no stream of conscious. So you got to focus that down. And I actually think there'll be technology that helps with that eventually too. That's like monitoring you in real time and be like, you're off topic, get back on. I think we'll see things like that start to happen sooner than later. But that's like, the ability to communicate is a skill that I think people undervalue for sure. Because and storytelling to me plays right into that. You got to be able to tell a good story. You got a beginning, middle, end. You got to wrap it up. You got to get keep people engaged. And storytelling is a huge moment of that, or component of that to me.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to tie this conversation up in a little bow here. But the last question I ask everybody in the podcast is, what are you most excited about? You know, outside of sort of this conversation and, you know, video and this realm, in the learning universe, what are you psyched about coming down the pipe 6-12 months from now? It could be a new technology, new shiny object, new process, somebody that you're following that you think has just really got their finger on the next thing. What's Jeff listen to?
Well, I've listened to a lot of things. On the personal side, like, to me, I'm like a big Brene Brown, Simon Sinek, like better communication, more openness, more vulnerability, those moments. Cause I think that's just, we all just need to be better humans, and actually practicing that. Like, it's like a yoga thing. It's not, we don't check the box. Like, it's a continual practice to be better at all of those things. So to me, that becomes like a really important thing that I'm personally trying to be better at, of how I empathize, communicate, and just be better listener, and all of those sort of things. So that's kind of important to me. And when it comes to like learning and development, I think the whole skills conversation is really important. The fact that now we have a common language to communicate as an L&D practitioner to our HR partners, like, we can relate content to skills people have. No one ever said they wanted a competency or something on something, right, like the traditional HR word, but we do want to improve our skills on things, and we all naturally want to advance our careers. So if I know I want to be a chief technology officer someday, I can kind of see, here are the skills I need to go get that job. Here are the people that say they're good at those skills that can mentor me as part of that. Here's the learning content that's across our organization that also could help me better those skills. Years ago, we didn't have that language. There was all these like really technical integrations and all this stuff, and it never quite flowed. Now that we're sort of converting everything to this skill economy, it kind of becomes this fuel that helps you navigate and helps people within an organization find the learning, the people, and the roles they need in a way that I haven't seen available before. So I'm pretty excited about what we're going to be able to do with skills and how you can apply them across the entire organization.
Fantastic, Jeff. This has been a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join me today. Let's look forward to the future of video and skill development, I guess, right? We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again for tuning into today's episode of the eLearning Podcast. If you like what you heard, please do me the favor of following us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or whichever social media you prefer. Also, if you're interested in diving deeper on eLearning, I encourage you to get your free ticket to the eLearning Success Summit, where there are more than 70 hours of presentations on best practices. Just go to eLearningSuccessSummit.com. And then finally, for the latest news, information, and resources about eLearning, come subscribe to our newsletter at lmspulse.com. Thanks.